Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is homemade green bean casserole. Today we're cooking up a classic holiday side dish. You know it, you love it, it's green bean casserole. Green bean casserole is great even when you don't even try that hard. I mean, the frozen green beans with the can of cream of mushroom soup and the crunchy French onions on top, I don't hate it. But today we're gonna do all of that, and we're gonna do it from scratch just to take it up another notch. And today we're cooking on the Napoleon P500 gas grill. We're gonna be utilizing this in a number of different ways, but the first thing we gotta do is blanch our green beans. So when I say blanching, what I mean is that we're gonna par cook these green beans in some hot water for about 5 to 7 minutes to soften them up. Because if you're not using like canned green beans or frozen green beans, these fresh ones have way more snap to them. So we gotta get some of that snap out, otherwise they won't be tender at all in the end, and that's not very pleasant. So kind of a unique setup inside the grill today. We're gonna be using our Napoleon griddle as kind of a broiler. See, by turning on this back burner back here, we can actually shoot heat right up into that, which will radiate down and brown the top of our casserole, which we're gonna be baking in this cast iron casserole dish here in a little bit. Before we do that though, we're gonna build our sauce, all of the base of our green bean casserole in this Dutch oven on the side burner. So let's just get it preheating while the green beans are blanching. So this is about 6 minutes in here. These beans, you see if you try and smash them, they'll actually collapse on themselves. They're not super tough anymore. They've still got a little bit of bite, which is good because they're actually gonna bake again inside the oven. But for now, we can go ahead and pull these out of here. Of course, there'll be a little bit of carryover cooking unless you throw these into ice water immediately to stop them. But I think we can just go ahead and let them carry over cook a little bit without doing any harm. So we'll just get them out of the water. Let's set those aside, and we'll swap this side burner with the pot of water for our Dutch oven. Now to start building the base of our green bean casserole, we're gonna throw about 4 ounces of diced bacon in here and let this render down, start to get crispy. Now a little bit down the line here, we're gonna build a roux. So we're gonna add our butter at this time. And I know that looks like a lot of fat, but once we get our onions and our mushrooms in here next, and then the flour to kind of create that roux, all of that's gonna get soaked up into everything. So throwing down some butter, we'll let that get melted. And then we're gonna add our diced onion, just 1 large yellow onion diced up. We're kind of skipping out on the knife work today because there's a lot of moving pieces here. We'd be here all day if you were watching me chop up onions and mushrooms. Then we've got 1 pound of assorted, finely diced mushrooms. So we've got all kinds of mushrooms in here. About half of it's baby bellas. There's some shiitake, cremini, and oyster as well. So look at that. Those mushrooms already soaked up all of that fat that's in there. And what's gonna happen now is as these mushrooms heat up, they're largely water, and that water's gonna start to cook out. So you're gonna see liquid standing, and then you're gonna wait until that liquid is cooked out, and we're starting to brown our onions and our mushrooms. In the meantime, I'm gonna throw in about 2 tablespoons of Cattleman's Grill trail dust, all-purpose seasoning. And the salt in there will help to start to draw that moisture out of the mushrooms. I'm gonna turn my heat up just a little bit, but not too high. We don't wanna scorch. Just wanna gently cook this down. Come up to about medium heat. You guys can see how much this is cooked down, and a lot of that liquid is cooked out, looking pretty dry down below. That's a good sign. We take this just a little bit further until stuff starts to stick, and then we're gonna deglaze with a little white wine. I'm gonna add about a 1/2 cup of a dry white wine, both for the flavor and to help deglaze the bottom of that Dutch oven. Kind of scrape all that stuff off. And then we're gonna let this reduce down again until you can't see any of that liquid. It should cook right out of there or soak into the veggies. totally dry on the bottom once again. So now we're going to add in a couple tablespoons of minced garlic. Let's give that a stir to start to incorporate it. And then our flour, which is going to be our thickener for our roux. And this is going to help us to create our essentially cream of mushroom sauce from scratch. So 1/2 cup of flour. We had 6 tablespoons of butter. That's the ratio I'm using here, just a little bit more flour than butter by volume. And that should start to gum everything up. And keep moving this around and scraping the bottom so none of that flour scorches. I'm just cooking some of that rawness out of the flour right now. And now we're ready for our cream, or in this case, we're using half and half. I've got 3 cups of it. So this is what's going to make our green bean casserole all creamy. We need to bring this up to a simmer, let it thicken, and then we're going to work in a 1/2 cup of Parmesan to finish it off. We're thickened up now, practically a mushroom cream gravy. I'm going to shut this heat off so we don't scorch anything. And like I said, we'll finish it off with our Parmesan. So now that's just melted right into there. I'm gonna grab my beans that have been par cooked, add those to the mix, and then we can get this transferred over to our casserole dish and we'll start baking. Look how it just really thickens up. Now's the time to taste it, see if you need to change the seasoning at all. It's pretty good. We could probably just bump the salt just a touch. I mean, just a tiny bit, but everything's tasting really good. Into the large casserole dish now. Give us a little more surface area. Smooth that out. Of course, you'll know the one thing that's missing now is our crunchy onion topping. We're gonna let this get a head start in the grill while we fry the onions on the side burner. So now our burners in the center are on low. Our burner in the back is on low so that we're not going too nuts on the heat right now. We can always turn this up later once we get our onions on top. Now we're gonna walk through our quick breading process for the onions that go on top. We're gonna start with 2 cups of buttermilk, and we're gonna season our buttermilk with 2 tablespoons of Cattleman's Grill Butcher House brine. So it's kind of like making a brine out of the buttermilk soak. In fact, if you've got the time, go ahead and put this together a couple hours early and just let your onions soak in here, and they'll start to soak up even more of that flavor from the dry brine. I've got a bunch of just thin sliced yellow onions that we're gonna dunk in our buttermilk. Take some of those onions out and dredge them in the flour. Use your dry hand for that. Shake off some of that extra, and then I'm gonna move these over to a wire rack so that extra flour falls through and we get just the right amount of breading on the outside of our onions. So about 2 cups worth of sliced onions should get you what you need to cover. And we're ready to head over to that hot oil. Same Dutch oven that we were working with earlier. I've just cleaned it out and we've added about an inch or less of oil. And that oil is sitting at about 400 degrees right now. Heats up pretty quick on the side burner. We're gonna fry these onions in batches. Probably about a quarter at a time, but they go so fast. I mean, like a minute and they're done. Just looking to get a golden brown toast on them. Just about like that, maybe just a hair more. Onions are sliced thin, so they shouldn't be mush. They should still have a little bite, but they shouldn't be raw either. Those look really good. So those are gonna go on paper towel just to drain off any excess oil. And then while they're still hot, fresh out of the oil, we want to hit it with just a little bit of kosher salt. That's it. We'll do that a few more times and we'll be ready to put these on top. Our casserole's been hanging out in here for half an hour now. Temperature's sitting at about 400 ambient temperature. You can see we've got bubbling coming up through the middle. Those are all good signs, but we haven't too thoroughly browned the top yet. So before, we've got a complete crust on the top, we want to get our onions on here to kind of settle in. So we spread these out evenly. And honestly, this could be done right now if we want it to be. I mean, it's hot enough. If we pop this inside, see, it's 200 degrees already, so it's plenty safe to eat. I mean, not that it wasn't, it was all cooked before. It's hot enough to eat is what I should say. But let's just get a little bit more brown on the very top here. In fact, we'll slide this back a little bit further and turn that heat up to about medium on the rear burner. So we're gonna get that heat bouncing off of our griddle right here and right onto the top of the onions. A little less than 10 minutes now. One spin in the middle, because you can see we were getting a little bit dark in the back there, but it doesn't take long just to get that little bit of extra color and crisp on top. Now this is fully ready and ready to come off the grill. Well, let's dish it up and get a taste. Well, I love that ratio of creamy to crunchy. Looks just right. Even the edges have this great little crisp to them from that cast iron. You get a bite with a little bit of everything in it. Crunchy. Crunchy on top, creamy in the middle. These green beans are just the right texture right now. I will say, you can do a cheater version of this and it might taste great, but if you start with canned green beans, you're eating mush with crunchy on top. I love that our green beans actually have some texture to them. And to be honest, throughout this entire process that you've seen us make all of these steps from scratch, you could replace any one of these with that shortcut if you wanted to. You don't have to make your own cream of mushroom. You don't have to make your own onions. You don't even have to use fresh green beans, although that's probably the one I wouldn't skip on. But overall, you're gonna get a better product if you put the love and attention into it that it deserves. Can't be happier about that. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.